Hey guys, Epidemic 2020 here. Today I want to talk a little bit about faith and doubt and blind faith and some related topics like this. For those that don't know, I'm a Christian. I just want to get started off by saying that blind faith is a terrible idea. And it's an anti-biblical idea too, which is kind of disappointing that so many Christians seem to embrace it these days. But that being said, over the course of your life, I'm sure you're going to run into some people who identify as religious or even not as religious, so atheists, Muslims, Christians, and you'll notice that some of these folks are going to have a mentality about them, a way of thinking about the world, where you realize that if they were wrong, they would never know it. So what I term closed-mindedness. Right? That's not a virtue. That's not something we should aspire towards, but something we should actively make sure we don't have. So I would recommend we have a healthy respect for doubt. A striving for open-mindedness. And I think we'd benefit as a species if we all attempted to pursue truth wherever it led. Now if it leads towards Christianity, great, and if it leads against Christianity, then so be it. Right? Test everything, hold on to the good. That's how I end all my videos. And that also happens to be 1 Thessalonians 5:21. So if Christianity is true, then the Christian should have no problem doubting it. There's no risk there. And if Christianity is not true, well, then you shouldn't believe in it. If Christ has not risen, your faith is futile. That's 1 Corinthians 15:17. Right, so that's in the Bible there too. Now, one way we can help out in our quest for being open-minded is to take some advice from Socrates. He had a lot to say on this topic, and I really like some of the things he goes for. One thing he warns us about is not to put too much stock or trust in people that are powerful or smart or who are very high esteemed, because all human beings make mistakes, and a lot of times the ones who think they're the smartest often have some hidden ignorance there, don't realize how much they don't know. So we shouldn't put our stock in other human beings too much. There's a Bible verse that mirrors that concept too. It's Psalms 146:3. And another point Socrates made, this was a really good point, and this is the one I struggle with. He tells us to be aware of our own ignorance, not to be too confident in our own abilities. And I like to think, I'm honestly not very humble sometimes, I like to think that when I see a bunch of arguments, some good arguments and bad arguments, I'm able to tell the difference. But in reality, all of us human beings are capable of being persuaded. It's entirely possible that we misidentify good arguments as bad ones and bad ones as good ones. We totally make mistakes, and we should be aware of our own limitations here. So that's part of the quest for truth. And again, I think we should all attempt to follow truth wherever it leads, even if it happens to be somewhere uncomfortable, somewhere different than we expected it to be, or different than our childhood raised us to be. That being said, it reminds me of one other topic. I've been in a couple churches where they say things like this. They'll be like, every head bowed, every eye closed, and raise your hand if you need some prayer or want to rededicate your life to Jesus or something like that. And I wouldn't have closed my eyes. I'd sneak or peek and look around, and I'd see like maybe one hand. And you hear the pastor going off saying things like, oh, I see your hand over there and over here, and oh, hands everywhere. And that really bothers me when stuff like that happens. Because you don't need to lie if your position is true. So I totally understand the desire of a pastor to do that. If you say those kind of things, people will feel less pressure. They'll feel easier for them to raise their hands. You get a little bandwagon effect, so people will be more likely to raise their hand. But it's really messed up. There's something really wrong about that. If you believe, as I do, that there exists an all-powerful, all-loving deity out there, if that's true, then you don't need to lie. Right? You don't need to embellish the truth. If you're in a discussion with another human being on these topics, you don't need to pretend you know things you don't. You don't need to twist the truth. You don't need to embellish. You don't need to give arguments that are spurious. Follow the truth wherever it leads. And you definitely don't have to lie for the sake of truth. Truth will find its own way. As always, test everything, hold on to the good.